Time to get real moody and talk about the Aeolian mode. The Aeolian mode is the natural minor scale, just like how the Ionian mode is the natural major scale. So Aeolian and minor scale are synonymous. Personally, I like my Aeolian to be spicy, but hey, there's my dad joke of the day. All right, sorry, I can't stop thinking about food. Spicy Aeolian. Okay, so let's break down this mode. We're gonna have, starting on the root note, which is the same old, an E. Our second is the same. Our third is flattened. So we have a minor third there. So we have 7, 9, 10 on the A string, and then we're gonna do our fourth, which is 7th fret here on the D string, same. 5th, samesies. And then our 6th is gonna be flattened. So we're doing 7, 9, 10 on the D string as well. Then we have our 7th scale degree, which is minor 7. Also 7th fret on the G string, and then our octave. So those are our notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, octave. Very, very moody. So if you were to associate the Aeolian mode or the minor scale, right? It's just got that melancholy kind of sound. Now, of course, the Aeolian mode is very widely used, probably more so than a lot of the other modes, but it's something that has a place in a lot of music. So it doesn't have to necessarily be super sad sounding, but it can definitely give this kind of earthy, kind of like just a sullen sort of musical atmosphere, which is cool, you know? Almost like classical too, you know? So if you were to be like, this is a Chopin piece in E minor, right? I don't know. I'm not familiar with my classical standards as much. I know a few of them, but if it was something like that and they say E minor, right? That would be a good indication that the minor scale, aka the Aeolian mode, would be perfect to play on, over something like that. All right, so let's wander through these notes here. Ooh. That was cool. Just using notes within that scale pattern. Really moody. I'm just kind of like, I'll pick a note and then I'll just, in my head, I'm just kind of singing where I want it to go, right? Remember, we talked about that. This is a great skill to build for not only your ear training, but your ability to essentially manifest what you hear in your head. So if you don't think you can hear anything in your head, just like play a note and then think of the next note within that scale, then find it, right? Wherever that is, it's, you got 7 notes to choose from, so, or 8 technically, but, find that note, and then just slowly but surely over time, you're gonna start to match up with the note that you're hearing in your head. You don't have to be pitch perfect if you sing it out loud. Like I said, it doesn't require any good vocal ability. Like, classic example, right here. I'm not a good singer at all, but I can find a pitch, or I can at least approximate it, and then what counts is that, we hear it on the fretboard. So that's really, at the end of the day, what matters is that we're able to bring the note out. And when we have that simple 7-8 note framework to mess with, right, it really narrows down our options. One thing I like to do actually with the Aeolian mode is kind of like find a fragment of like a minor arpeggio. Right, so it would be 7th fret, 10th fret on the A string, then 9th fret on D and 9th fret on G. We're essentially outlining an E minor chord there, right? If we were to keep the arpeggio going, So, obviously we're staying within the confines of this single octave, right? Because that's how we're gonna really get our ear familiar with each individual note. But just to establish, further context there, So you can start by a little arpeggio like that. I mean, like something Eric Johnson does a lot, where he'll just like outline an arpeggio going into a lick. Especially if it's like a minor pentatonic, which is very similar to the minor diatonic or the minor scale or the Aeolian mode, right? All different names to describe the same thing. But if we were to take the pentatonic, minor pentatonic, let's say, which we are going to get to in a subsequent video in more detail, but that is essentially taking 5 of those 7 notes and then creating the scale. So you'll notice a lot of similarities between the Aeolian mode and the minor pentatonic scale. It's the same deal with the Ionian mode, or the major scale, and the major pentatonic scale, right? It's the same tonalities, just you're just omitting a couple notes, but they're right there within the same neighborhood, you know? You can get even bluesy with it. You do little embellishments on each note, you know? Now it's sounding less classical and more bluesy, but I'm still using the same scale, right? I'm just picking and choosing different notes, and I'm kind of conveniently skipping those diatonic notes, right? That note right there, and then this one, because those have a really, you know, moody sound. It starts to sound more moody and potentially classical-y, right? So just these two notes right here are the 2 additional notes, right? As far as what you add to the minor pentatonic, right? To make it diatonic, 7 notes. And when you put those 2 notes next to each other, oof, a lot of tension. But that tension kind of makes it want to go somewhere. Another reason why this exercise is important. I'm going to say this every single one of these modes videos. I'm going to remind you of this. That's how important it is. And again, this is exactly what I wish I was told when I was first getting into these modes, is just get to know them by hearing the tension. Let your ear pick up on how each note reacts to the root note, right? Our little droned low E note there. And just kind of let your ear tell you where you want it to go from there, especially when you reach a point of tension like this or like this. Because you don't want to hang on that. That's where it starts to get a little dissonant. You want it to resolve in some kind of way. So maybe you want to sing it out, like, you know. And just go down a fret. Then now that you're here, like. Yeah, like I'm just kind of just shooting in the dark, you know, wandering while sort of singing the notes ahead of time. So I'm going. Now we're actually starting to create melody, right? My vocal pitch isn't really matching up exactly, but it's inspiring me, right? It's like it's guiding me to where I want to go. So now I'm creating this melody here in real time. This is exactly how I want it to look for you when you're working through this. And it's simple, right? So and you got this cool melody that you can employ just by playing it solo like that, right? Just droning that low E really paints a picture. And that's just, again, straight out of the Aeolian mode. So if you were to, use different combinations of notes and different orders of notes, you're going to be playing more deliberately and more musically, and it's going to be much more of a show of musical maturity. So you're not just going, you're like, I know the scale. No, you don't. If that's how you play it, you don't really know the scale. So I'm telling you this, but I'm also telling myself this. It's like I'm telling my current self this and my younger self, because that's just how important this lesson is what I really wish that my younger self could have learned without building up years of the habitual, linear, boring, mechanical way of playing scales. So I like to preach away from just thinking in terms of scales or just using scales. It's like they're tools, right? So we want to be able to actually, we want to be able to use them. It's like, don't just play the scale, right? Because you're just going to convey musical information that way, but actually put it to use, make it serve you rather than just the scale playing you, right? You got to play the scale. Don't let the scale play you. I think Guthrie Govan said that one time. So wise words, and I 100% agree. So that pretty much sums that up as far as how important it is to get to know the scales in this way.